Well, let's cross to her now live as the mission in Turkey starts to come to an end. Chriselda, great to talk to you as always. I see that you're with a team, and I guess these are the real heroes of the story.
Well, that's right, Peter. These are the unsung heroes and heroines of this mission. The Gift of the Givers, of course, you would recall, had deployed this experienced team of medics and rescuers to this country to assist with the operations here, as this country is left devastated as a result of the earthquake. And certainly tell you that the scenes that we have seen over the past couple of days have really painted a picture, I guess, for the world of the devastation that is left behind here. Men, women and children left destitute, trying to pick up the pieces of their lives. And, you know, with the kind of the catastrophe that we've seen homes that have completely been razed to the ground. And it's going to take a very long time, Peter, you know, for these people to rebuild, given the fact that, you know, currently some of them have even erected tents in different parts of where they once lived. And that's where they are spending the days and nights. You would know, of course, that as that death toll continues to rise, as you correctly pointed out, we're fast heading towards the 40,000 mark now. There are still many people that are unaccounted for at this stage. So desperate families still waiting for news about the whereabouts of their loved ones. Today, when we went out, Peter, the Gift of the Givers rescue team that had gone out, assisted as well by other rescuers from around the world. There were more bodies that were brought up, you know, indicating the devastation, the sadness and grief on the faces of these people, palpable. Still having the sirens that are blaring throughout several parts of the city in which we are in really paints a picture of, you know, what is expected to come even well after we've packed up and left in this country. Without any delay, let me speak to some of these men and women who participated in this. They've been working grueling and long hours in dangerous situations, Peter. In some instances, I would just sit back and look and think, how is this even going to be possible? These are structures which are extremely unstable, and they're just going in there to try and see if they can find if there's anyone who's still alive, buried under that rubble as well as the debris. Let me bring some of them in now. Ma'am, thank you very much for your time. Let me start towards my left. If you could just give us your name and the division which you are serving in this mission, and what has it been like for you? And, you know, I must say, we often look at missions like this and think, strong man behind it all, but there's women here too who are playing a very critical role in a mission of this magnitude. It's extremely grueling.
Hi, thank you so much. Good evening to you and the listeners. One of the most my name is Fatima, I'm an occupational therapist. One of the most striking areas has really been the impact on women and children. And as a woman, as a mother, I think, and as part of a really diverse team, women show up in unique ways to reach out to fellow women and to children who really are so vulnerable and doubly and triply impacted. There are three things that we're really focusing on here. One is the vulnerable group of women and children. The second area is really about people that have been secondary or tertiary displaced from Syria, who fled, who rebuilt, and then now have to rebuild again after this devastating earthquake. And then the third area are people with disability. Imagine people who have mental illness or people who have been physically disabled who were in the buildings and that have collapsed, and then the newly disabled. So there's certainly a wide array of people who are vulnerable, at risk, and really need help.
I want to bring you in as well, ma'am. I mean, I was watching over the days. You've had to console families. You've had to, in particular today at the site that we were at, I could see the devastation on the face of one of the women who clearly couldn't, you know, grasp what was taking place. 4 bodies had been recovered from the rubble. You're participating in that. I mean, what has this been like for you? How do you digest the magnitude of what has taken place here. I personally have not seen anything so devastating.
Well, good evening. I think it is something that is difficult to digest for most of our team. We haven't seen the magnitude of this type of emergency in South Africa in our hometowns. For many of us, it's some of our first deployments or even our second. So it's really something that has taken our breaths away, I think. In context for today, if you think of how long those families have waited to find closure for their loved ones and to find out whether it really is them in that rubble, it's difficult because it's really something unfathomable. They've lost everything. They've lost their income, they've lost their families, they've lost their home, which is their safe haven. And for us, all we can do is console them and allow grief to essentially flow and allow the natural mechanisms of healing to take place. It's heartbreaking for the team, it's heartbreaking for the victims, but it's something that we as rescuers are exposed to on the daily. I think each person has their own coping mechanisms and essentially goes through it in their own way. Yeah.
How do you do it? I remember seeing a 15-year-old boy who lost his mother and father. And I looked at the smile on his face. I'm not sure if it was a smile, but I don't think he could grasp what was happening. And I kept thinking of what life will look like ahead of all of this. How do you cope as a team in trying to assist, keep it together, and have to deal, I guess, with the emotional and psychological impact of it all after?
Thank you, Chriselda. I think my colleagues have actually said a mouthful, and the devastation is enormous. The suffering is enormous. The pain is enormous. Homes have been torn apart. Homes have been deserted, and it's one cannot really explain what's currently happening here. But as a collective, we sit around, in the evening, and we get together, talk through our day, and try and console each other. That's how we try and cope with everything.
And your family is, I'm sure, also worried, not to sound like I'm dampening down the feelings of the people here. You also have families. You try to go in there and do what needs to be done, save people, those, who have sadly passed on. You bring that closure back to these families. And I think everyone wants that closure or dignified send-off for their loved ones. You can't do that without knowing where your loved one is.
Most certainly. I think, good evening to the viewers. So one thing we've actually been challenged with when we're out on the field is that we're getting a lot of families coming requesting for our assistance, using our dogs to go, get some closure, try to find the missing relatives and family members. So it's really been challenging. But I'm glad. We may not have found so many missing alive victims, but we've managed to bring closure to, I think, about 12 or so families. So, and today, on our last day, we found we recovered 5 bodies. So, and that's very important for many people to bring them closure. And I think that also helps in the grieving process. And as you could see today, that Michaela was consoling some family members who were quite, taken aback and all grateful in so many respects that they're able to get closure. So I'm glad that the team could do that for quite a few of the families out here.
Raina, you're also part of that. I saw today as well. We've been watching you as a team, obviously, as you go to what is referred to as the red zone. The red zone is where we're not allowed to go. You get to experience, together with the other team members, direct impact on the eye, exactly what is taking place there. What for you, I can't use the word stands out, What for you, I think, just brings this entire catastrophe or paints a picture of, what all of this is about and the devastation that it leaves behind for so many people?
I think, on the first day we were sent out for search and rescue, and seeing what, we've been seeing on YouTube, on the news and on pictures prior to our arrival, and then getting to a scene and seeing it face to face. The viewers need to know you can't even have imagined what you are faced with. The pictures doesn't paint the picture of the reality that we are being faced with here daily. And walking along the rubble and seeing people's lives out open and, clothing, children's teddy bears, toys, knowing that life once lived here, memories were made here, cherished moments it was a safe haven for those moments. And, trying to find a family member in between all of this has been really hard to just digest and piece together. I think, with that being mentioned, you are on the rescue site, and there's a family member waiting to find out if we have found their family member. Their selflessness, the kindness in their moment of devastation. They've lost everything, but so grateful for the assistance. I think that's forever changed me. I don't know if I would be able to be that gracious and humble and so selfless in that moment. I think that has I can't even find the words to describe just the people. And I think that speaks volumes for the country and the community that we are in at the moment. Yeah.
And Peter, I've watched as rescuers begged, I beg your pardon, residents, those affected, begged the rescuers to keep looking, after hours and hours, every morning they would wake up and continue searching. And, when the rescuers have to pack up for the evening and resume searching the next day, there's a sense of desperation in their voices, on their faces. You can see that the assistance that has come from far and wide, including from the Gift of the Givers from South Africa, is what they needed as the people of this country. And for you, sir, talk us through your moment of when you realized the magnitude of what you were here to do.
So when we got the call as media response to join Gift of the Givers to come through, initially we thought we're going to come in and straight away we're going to be pulling people out of buildings and working. But when we hit the ground, we didn't actually understand the devastation until we saw it. I mean, buildings were just completely obliterated. There was nothing left. Some of the buildings that we went to, that families were crying out for us to go and assist. You look at these buildings and you know that there's absolutely no way that anybody could have survived in there. But the hope that these families carry, it's unbelievable that they carry that hope and the faith that these people have in the rescuers. It was just something for us that, I don't know, as my colleague has said, if we can take anything away from this, is these people are so humble and kind. When they have absolutely nothing, while we were on sites, these people have no food left, and they fed us. While we were digging in buildings for their relatives, they fed us, just to say thank you.
And let's bring the two of you in, ladies. You're with the dog unit, is it? Yes. With the dog unit, the role that the dogs play. I looked at how, the critical role the dogs would go in search. That's a crucial part of the rescue mission, to try and detect if there's any life in these collapsed buildings.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Seleka from Northwest K9 Police. I've been with the search and rescue for 5 years, and we have been called here to help. It is very devastating. The dogs are trying its best, and even in the collapsed structures, they are struggling to go in because of the rubbles and everything, and the wires and the sharp rocks. But they are trying our best, and we are pulling our part. This is very devastating. We are here to help them to find closure.
Thank you very much, and I'll bring you in as well, ma'am. Your experience, what goes into putting together a mission of this kind, knowing not knowing what you're going to find when you get to these areas. But all of you have done an incredible job to make sure that you bring some relief to these people.
Thank you. Good evening to the viewers. I'm Brigadier Mudley, the leader of the K9 Search and Rescue Team from South Africa. We were given the call on Thursday night to come up to assist with the search and recovery of live persons, which we really hope to find as much live persons because that's our aim. However, we managed to recover one live person, as you have reported yesterday, and unfortunately the rest were lots of bodies. We've put in a lot of effort. Our dogs are trained to search both live and for dead bodies. They are able to detect this through buildings and shallow graves as well. And unfortunately what we have seen is, what we see on TV and what we've seen today is total devastation. It's a it's a sight for sore eyes. Families would see the K9s and they're desperate. It changes, it brings something into them that I cannot explain. It gives them hope.